Hi, welcome to another episode of Young Innovators STEM show. As you know, we promote robotics in our workshops as well as to the school. And this year, we delivered a 8 weeks program on robotics like we did last year. And in 2025, we are going to take it to the next level. Let me introduce my mate who has been working on the various robotics program, and we talk to Shayyan Ali with the more details. Welcome, Shayyan, to the show.
Hello.
Yep. So tell a little bit about last few weeks you have been developing. Firstly, tell me about your 8 weeks robotics program experience, as well as what's coming up this year.
Okay, thank you for the question. So, back last year in 2024, November and December, we ran a 8 weeks robotics program. And in that program, we had many enthusiastic participants who really wanted and were really interested in robotics. I really enjoyed running that program myself because in that program, the age of the participants were a little bit older. So because of this, I could focus on talking more about everything when it comes to robotics, not just coding, but also about like physical structures, also a little bit about electrical circuits. And so this
Excellent.
program was run over multiple weeks. It gave a good introduction to many of the core sensors that you work with, many of the core motors you work with, and how the engineering design process evolves over time, how you might
Wow.
start with something simple and then progressively build onto whatever product you started with to develop some new innovative product for a new problem that you're trying to solve. So it was a
Ex-
great experience running it myself, and I really liked the enthusiasm I got from participants as well, and a lot of them wanted to learn more, which is
Excellent.
what got me onto this
This
sort
is
of.
natural. If you have
Yeah,
finished one program and you want to know what's next, what else they can
exactly.
learn.
Because you don't want to stop the learning for them either. They want to continue learning, they want more exposure. And so, because of this, I was working on developing the next level robotics experience. I was trying
Okay.
to think about what
Exciting.
else can they learn, what else can they be exposed to, so that they can either A, start working on things at home and try and just continue development at home. They don't have to
Just
be
play with
forced
it
to.
and just
Exactly.
experience or hang
And
on it.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah. So
then
they want to
the
have a
second
more
thing,
hands-on experience. Yep.
yeah, and the second thing was also brain fart. The second thing was also trying to have them. There's a word for this, and it's already escaped my mind. Was to also get them an idea of what they'll do in university, get them an idea of what they'll do in the industry. Because when you're using something, let's say like EV3, when you're using a very, let's say much lower level or easier sort of introductory to robotics, you might not actually know what it'll actually be like in the industry. You'll think, oh, it's all just coding. You might think, oh, it's all just electronics. But no, robotics is an interdisciplinary field. So because of this, you want to actually show them that no, it's not just simple code blocks like you see right now. It's actually a lot more. And so I want to introduce that to students as well. And that's what I'm researching and looking into. What technologies do we have available to us?
Okay. We are excited to know more about. So, what are the technologies you experience while the robotics, other robotics
Yep.
disciplines?
So while consulting with different people, talking to different people, you'll see, and I'll share my screen just quickly. I made a quick list here of 2, 3, 4 kits. You'll also see it above you as well in the video, which is EV3, Arduino, Microbit, and Pi. So when I was
So,
doing the 8 weeks robotics show, we started with
yep.
EV3. And EV3 is a great tool for any, I'll use the word educationist, someone who wants to
Yep.
teach other people. And because EV3 is bulky, so because of that, it doesn't get damaged easily. It's also great for
Expensive
prototyping.
as well.
It is also very expensive. So the thing with EV3 is that if I give you an EV3 and I tell you to develop something, you're going to be limited by the microcontroller, that very big brick that only has 4 inputs and outputs. You want more flexibility. So because of this, I wanted to go more into the deep end. What else is there? Should we go more into industry? So this is when you might start exploring things like an Arduino. Well, why do we think about Arduinos in the first place when we have something like an EV3? Well, the Arduino literally forces you to work with the electronics. You can't just say, "Hey, I don't want to connect a, I just want to use a USB and then just everyone's happy. No, no, no. You have to connect the pins and actually understand what is going on with the electrical signals. You
So you
actually have
get
to
the
get
lower level knowledge as well, the basic level.
exactly. You get lower level knowledge, and you also learn about a lot of things when you experience Arduino, how a
So more
numbers
go
work.
into electronics.
Yes, and that experience is what teaches a student, hey, robotics isn't just coding. Now you have to consider how do we safely work with electronics. Now you have to consider how do we use electrical signals and how do these signals actually give us multiple values. You might just think in zeros and ones, but how do we get more than just a zero and a one? When you want to get like a distance cannot be represented as zero and one. It's represented as multiple centimeters. How do I represent 55? How do I get these calculations? Well, how do
So
I? Yeah.
Microbit is similar to Arduino, or
Yes, and that's the other kit I had to look into, which was the Microbit. The Microbit is similar to an Arduino in certain ways because the Microbit also involves actually connecting signal zeros and ones.
okay,
But the Microbit is a lot safer as an alternative. The Arduino,
okay.
if you look at an image of an Arduino, you'll notice there's a lot of little capacitors. You'll notice a lot of things you can break. If you
There's a
look
lot of
at
circuitry there.
Yes, and if you look at a microbit, it's like one flat disk with two buttons on it and other touch sensors and LEDs. It's a lot more durable and it's a lot more cheaper if you're just going to buy that just to get started.
And
The
what's
thing
the
I
Pi
really
for?
the Pi is Raspberry Pi, not a Pi like the number Pi,
You
not
eat.
a Pi like the food.
It
So
will
the
be lovely to
Raspberry,
have a sweet robot.
yes, it would be lovely. And so
Yeah.
the Raspberry Pi is pretty much a full on, think of it like this, it's a mini computer.
Oh,
But the
really?
reason why people talk about Raspberry Pi and Arduino in the same sentence is because they both have those little pins that you connect electrical wires on. So
Okay.
a Raspberry Pi, you can run Linux, you can run Windows, and you would also have an extra program that manages the pins for you to send out
Beautiful.
electrical signals, turn on lights, and do different things.
Amazing. Let's can we just from a student point of view, if can you give a bit of more what you come up with, what's fascinated you in your research? Can you share a little bit about how when
Yeah.
you're comparing with it?
So just quickly, just so that also it'll make an easy short out of this. I'll do a quick sort of idea of how you want to compare these. EV3, if you're afraid about breaking things, if you're trying to teach to children who are very young, and if you're trying to just understand on a high level how do we use sensors and their uses and what's their use in the industry, go for EV3. If you want to try and make robotics simpler for yourself and you want to focus a lot more on coding, but developing proper coding skills, and let's say you really struggle with coding, then go with something like a microbit. The microbit
Okay.
itself allows you to code with three different languages. One is the
Wow.
block coding that many people might see in Scratch, that many people might see in
Yeah.
EV3 Classroom.
Yeah.
Another one is Python, a very popular programming language that's easy to learn and is a
There's a
lot
new
more
one.
repeatable.
Everybody's adapting it. Yeah.
Exactly. And also, it gives you the option to program in JavaScript. Not many people actually
Really.
know this, but JavaScript can also be used with the microbit. So if you're experienced in, let's say, JavaScript, if you're experienced in Python and you want to know how do these work in robotics, then a microbit is a great way to start. What I love about the microbit, I don't want to go on for too long, but what I love about the microbit is that you do not need to buy one physically to get started. I'll
All
quickly
right.
just I'll quickly show you in just a second. But other than the microbit, you have the Arduino. The Arduino is a literal experience of what is robotics. If you're trying to see what is in the industry, how do I work with certain microcontrollers, how do I get things done, and what do professionals have to work with, look at Arduino. And Arduino isn't as complicated as a microcontroller versus something like an actual computer. A
Yep.
computer has a lot of working parts. A computer has many things you have to take into account. Arduino is like, no, you give me inputs and outputs. I'll do some calculation through our code. We'll try and figure out what we'll do with these outputs, and then we'll make something work. And it's very
Okay.
good because Arduino is a great introduction to what is electronics about. Some electrical people who work in electronics, they don't even look at computers. They just look at stuff like Arduinos, microcontrollers. And so if you want to know what you might do, this is a great introduction.
Yep.
Finally, if you want to go to a higher level that is more difficult, but also a great experience, especially when you do want to do robotics and AI, then look at something like a Raspberry Pi. A Raspberry Pi is a computer that also has the capability of working with individual pins like an Arduino. So you can connect your own sensors to a Raspberry Pi. You can do many other things, such as connecting motors to a Raspberry Pi, but still have access to internet, still have access to a screen. You can connect your keyboard and mouse. Literally, you can connect it. And so a
Because
Raspberry
it's a
Pi,
computer.
yeah, it's literally a computer, but you have more accessibility to the actual electronics. So
Yep.
that's a quick summary
You can put a
of
bare
both.
bone, yeah, bare bone computer, yeah.
Now, what I did want to show was what I really liked about the Microbit, both from if you're trying to learn by yourself and trying to get a quick introduction to robotics, and also
So that's
for,
what my question was. If
yeah,
somebody
yeah,
watching you, they want to get started, but then sell. Though we offer the robotics every week, we do in a club activity as well.
yeah,
Beside the robotic show, we do robotic workshop, we do and robotic course we offer every
yeah.
week. You make experiment with the club members. By the way, people who are watching, if you join the club, you get the opportunity, the first hand opportunity while we're developing these programs to play with these technologies as well. So yes, continue, Shan.
100%. And as you just said, some of my students from the 8 weeks robotics programs actually joined me on this learning experience where we were trying to explore different technologies, and they really enjoyed it. Now, here is the microbit. You'll notice that I can demo the whole microbit right here, and I can
Yep.
actually start putting in code. What I
Just
like,
just go back go back one step. How
yeah.
did we come here? What is happening?
Okay,
So
so to get to the screen, is you click on or you search up makecode.microbit.com, sorry, .org,
okay, yeah,
and
yeah,
then from there you'll have many projects. So here's one example, the flashing heart, and you'll have the three languages I mentioned. You can use block
yep,
coding, Python, or JavaScript.
yep.
Now, if I use JavaScript, what you'll notice is that this is a step-by-step tutorial, which is great for people who just want to already see how can I code something, how do I get started. So
So so so you code inside the website as well as the
yeah,
outcome onto this simulation. You can call virtual
yeah,
microbit.
yep. You can think of it like as you said, a simulation. It's a simulation. So if I were to tell it to do something like this, show icon. Okay, sorry. And this is where I'll quickly get into this, hopefully. Yeah. So if I were to put some code that says basic.show icon, show me a heart, it'll show me a heart there, which is very nice. But here's where the limitation comes in a little bit is that with languages like, let's say, JavaScript, what they tried to do was that they tried to create it as blocks. That way, if you're used to block coding, you can still drag and drop the code and see how the code would look like in actual text. And so
Hmm.
this is very useful for people who are
So
new to
this is good
using something
to
like
switch
JavaScript.
to transit from
Block coding?
the block coding to the actual, so people know
Yeah.
that. That's
Now,
great.
if you go
Can
to the
you
block coding
sorry,
interface,
yeah,
yeah,
go ahead.
if you go to block coding interface, it's very similar. You can show LEDs, you can manually put in what LEDs you want to turn on, and this is great for anyone who's very young, for anyone who wants to get started and doesn't want to go through all the technical hassle.
So you can start like this, but you will be limited to do what you can do. Slowly, when you get to
Yes,
the say, look, I want to do something which block can't do it or takes longer, then you can switch to the one of the JavaScript or a
yeah.
Python language. Before
Now,
we go further,
yeah,
because the whole conversation started when you showed me a great document to your own research. Can you just quickly go through so people know how much effort you took to get to this point?
okay,
So this is where the
yeah,
whole you were doing. So can you go through a little bit about it, and if any fascinating thing, can you share us, show us
okay.
what
To
excited
quickly,
you?
of course, to quickly sort of preface this document, what I did was that I tried to list down all the robotics kits I knew and technologies that were available. Some I knew, some I didn't know. I also consulted with different professionals on this, and they also
Yeah,
recommended me to research different kits as well. From
because
this,
every crate offers
yeah,
something unique than others.
yeah.
That's why they exist. Otherwise, they would have died so far.
And so I also looked at kits I had at home. One was a MakeBot, and I never actually opened it. And then so when I looked at things like the MakeBot, what you'll notice is that it is pretty much like an Arduino, except that they give you a whole kit. So if you're scared about, oh, I don't know
So
what to
so
buy individual
the
parts,
core is again Arduino, or they have their own
it's
core
actually it's an
micro.
Arduino core, but they build on it. So they
I
add their own
understand they made a
software
kit.
that,
Kit means that the kit doesn't have to buy individually. They
yeah,
gave the some put it this way, it's like
mm,
when you buy a Lego, they give you a Lego for let's see a transformer. So
yeah.
you don't need to build yourself. They already put it together. That's great idea.
So you have the MakeBot, then you have the Arduino. I tried to look at different guides, see what resources were available. And what
Yeah.
I realized with the Arduino is that, especially for when you're new, you need a teacher. When you're new to coding, when you're, let's say, new to even electronics and you know coding, having a
Yeah.
teacher helps, which is
Yeah.
why I was using a, let me see if I can quickly find it. It should be right here. I think this was it. Yes, it was. I created like a little learning log. So I went through a video series by, I already forgot his name, but very nice teacher, great
Oh
teacher,
yeah,
in
I
fact.
remember that. I had a small session with a very, very wise person.
So while I was going through his videos, I was looking at things that he did great and what topics did he explore. And I also looked at things that he could have improved. For example, from my point of view, if I looked at him going through the science, how can we simplify the science? Spending like 20, 30 minutes going through how an LED works might be too much for someone who's young. So I was looking at, well,
Similar to the coding. When you start
yeah,
coding, you don't care how many lines it takes. But
yes.
once you build it, after that you look at it and say, look, I need to simplify because it's too complicated.
And from a teaching point of view, I also want to look at how did he design his lessons? Did he have an assignment at the end? Did he do all the coding
Wow.
with the students in the lesson? So I took notes, and so I was going through different things. What did he teach? What did I really like? What do I want to take away?
Wow. So how many lessons you gone through so far?
Well, I summarized a lot of these. I for the later ones, I didn't actually go through fully. I sort of skimmed through the video, looked at the topics, looked at the code, and looked at what he tried to explore. So there is a lot to go through.
Wow,
There's
Shant,
so much learning here.
I like they're not only teaching Arduino, they're also teaching the all the electronics like Ohm law and analog system. So that's beautiful. It's actually go other way around as well. If somebody
Hmm,
wants to learn and see Ohm law in a practical way or visualize it out of
exactly.
theory, these little things we can convert into like a physics teacher can use this, say, give it a assignment to say, look, Ohm law, you study it. Why don't you use this tutorial 9 of Arduino from there and prove it? It's really works.
Yeah, prove it. You can also tell them design a traffic light. Design a traffic light that works on different delays. And then students can also talk about, well, what's the advantages and disadvantages? They can say, well, look, if this changes, here are all the other new issues that we introduced. If we change the battery, here's what's going to happen to the light bulb. It'll explode. So
Uh,
it's honestly, as a learning experience, I loved his videos. When I was going through university, I
can
was
you
like,
mention the name so people can
of
remember?
course.
We will put in the chat box anyway, but
Let
comments.
me see. I know his first name's Paul, but let me get Paul McCorder. That was his name.
Okay, Paul Makora. I'll remember it. Okay,
Great
we
guy.
going back to the next one. Yes.
Yes. So you have the Arduino, amazing. Raspberry Pi, again, a lot more complicated. In
Making me
fact,
hungry.
yeah.
What's a P
So
plus model? It's a newer model.
yeah. So well, it's not the newest model. Raspberry Pi comes in. Think of it like different computers. Newer computers now come with Wi-Fi built into them. The Raspberry Pi that I had, which was a B plus, doesn't have Wi-Fi. So you can
Okay,
think of it like this: each new Raspberry Pi will have their own advantages. Some will have more RAM, CPU power. Some will even have access to Wi-Fi. Some will use Bluetooth.
but the size
So
still the same. Size
yes, and
matters.
sometimes the Raspberry Pi might be bigger and smaller. Like with an Arduino, you look at the R3, and R3 is a medium-sized board, but then you have the Nano, which is like this small, maybe the size of my finger. So it's really great for very, very small robotic applications.
And
So
because
similarly, yeah,
people need to know why they have a size matter. Because when
hmm,
you're going to convert into a robot,
yep,
certain robot cannot be bigger. For example, uh, there is a small pipe you need to detect leakage or anything. The
yes,
robot cannot get into it. They cannot do anything. And similarly, if you do mass production of these for certain purposes, then the cost effectiveness plus,
yep,
for example, you want to make a toy, and toy has a size limit. You can't make bigger one. So
yep. And
similarly, all the tool,
in
yeah,
our case,
that's
what
why.
happened was that on a project, we actually had to look at an Arduino Uno R3 and we're like, okay, this is great, but now we need to get a bigger board. But the issue with the bigger board is that it has a chance of breaking. It has more issues. So because of
Mm,
this, there are different things you have to consider. And yeah, similarly with the Raspberry Pi, you have to consider, do I need to use access to the internet for my project? A lot of the time, the answer is no, depending on what you're doing. But a lot of the time, the answer might be yes. So I
yes,
would not recommend this for someone who's learning for the first time because then you'd have to look at what is an operating system. Then you'd have to go through a technical setup guide. It is not a fun experience. I would recommend starting with Arduino, learning some basics, and then jumping to something like a Raspberry Pi.
Yep.
And then comes the Microbit. Amazing, amazing, amazing if you're in schools as well. If you're a school teacher and you want to teach coding, or if you want to use something that won't break as easily, Microbits are amazing.
So
Very,
what's
yeah.
make code and go in
Make
the
code is their coding environment. So I can quickly open that here. Give it a second. So what we looked at earlier. So you have JavaScript and the block coding. What I loved about this
so it's
wasn't
owned by
JavaScript.
Microsoft now.
Yes, but I want to
All
mention
right.
something. JavaScript and what's it called?
Python.
JavaScript, not Python. JavaScript and block coding. Not that like it's cool, but what I loved was their Python editor. Look at this. So
Yeah.
they give you your full documentation on the left here, so that you
So you
can
don't
just
need to
go
remember
here.
things. You can still concepts are real. So that's what I
Yes,
like about they very cleverly do the teaching part and the learning part and concept in here. So these words will
yes.
go onto their tongues like variable, loops, so they know what they're doing.
They give
Wow.
them what I love about this is that they give them an IDE, they give them a debugger, they give them easy access to a reference, they give them
So
different
it's a
ideas.
integrated learning environment. You
Exactly.
can call say it's independent built-in LMS.
It is perfect. And if you want to go into the lower level stuff, they even give you like
So
specific
everything
things.
you're using is a browser based, right?
Yes. So you don't even need to buy this in the first place. You
So
can
if you
learn
have
here
started a
first.
project at school, when you
Yeah,
go home, you can continue with the login.
exactly. So
Excellent.
honestly, an amazing technology and something I'd highly recommend for schools. If you don't have the money to buy like say, a bunch of these for a class, you can just start here. You don't even need to buy one. And then you
That's
can just
great
get
idea,
one and show
especially
to your
certain
students.
school has a budget limit
Yeah,
because the whole idea is to teach them the concept of programming, teach them some the robotics concept as well, and teach them to have a feel of it.
hmm
But as soon as the kids can afford, a school can afford, and any idea, we're not going to talk about prices at the moment. So
yeah.
beside the microbit, what else did you research about? Can you show us a bit more?
Let me see. There shouldn't be that much more because I know there's other kits as well, but I try to keep it brief. So then I
Oh,
looked into different
okay.
coding. So because coding came up in the robotics session because they were doing block coding, so like, how do you learn coding? How do you do this? How do you do that? So I was like, all right. So for coding, we were looking at
Because
different
at
ways
the
we
end
could
of the
teach.
coding is a core of the robots,
Yeah.
because that's what bring them into STEM, because technology part is the coding. Rest
Yes.
is physical brick and mortar kind of thing, engineering, math, and other science. But the coding is connects all of them together to make it work. You can call
Correct.
it brain of the robot.
And Shafkat,
Actually, should say mind the software. Yeah,
as you might already know, Python is a very great language. It's an easy language to learn, and it's being used a lot because of how it has shorter development time.
let's keep
Although it
it
does, yes,
from basic level to commercial level.
yeah. And so because of this, I was trying to look at different ways to learn Python. When fun fact, when I started my whole let's say coding journey, I started on Khan Academy. The thing is though, is that on Khan Academy, their JavaScript was a special version of JavaScript called processing JavaScript. So because of this, I wasn't able to get that full experience of coding outside of Khan Academy. Now, just recently, they introduced a Intro to Computer Science course in Python. So
Wow.
now, not just myself, but any other student who wants to get started with coding and wants things simple as well, they have a full course done in Python, which I
Okay.
should have right over here. And it goes unit by unit, teaching you different parts of computer science and also teaching you a whole programming language. And it's a great resource. I'm going to spend time myself. I'm going to spend time with my students as well to explore and learn the language through this. And
That's good.
yeah, and so this is why I also looked at Microbit because Microbit also teaches you Python as well, but through the lens of robotics. Besides
Okay.
this is the last thing, and this will be the end of my presentation, which is just CS in schools. This is what one of the professionals I spoke to, the ones who work in education, they recommended to look at this site. And this site is great for teachers. This site is great for anyone who wants to teach also newer things in coding and robotics, such as AI. Because in this
Is it
site,
Australian side or is it
it's an
American side?
Australian site. So it's based on the
Excellent.
Australian curriculum. If you go to courses, you also can teach how to do code with AI with
AI.
Python. So if you know
Wow.
a little bit of Python, you can now go into generating images, doing prompt engineering, creating a whole working chat where you just talk to the AI and you can have the AI reply back. So it is a great resource.
Amazing.
Now, if
Amazing.
you want access to things like using the AI capabilities, as they mentioned here, you'll need to sign up with a school ID or you'll need to obtain a school ID.
Obviously, there's a ethical nowadays. They don't want kids to get into everything. They want to
But
make
yeah,
sure it's supervised.
they provide you with the slideshow, they provide you with the workbooks, they provide you with, even if you get your school ID, they'll provide you with the AI as
God
well.
bless them. I mean, making easy for schools to adapt these things.
Exactly. You don't have to be an expert in code because they'll even provide you videos to help teach half the content.
Excellent.
So it is
Excellent.
a great
It's a great
resource.
research. I mean, I saw you've been busy. I wanted to know and share with
Mhm.
others as well. I learned a lot. There are three takeaway for me
Yep.
is the one microbit I didn't know about much about. The second is most of the things is manage LMS, so you don't need to go anywhere. The whole browser can deliver everything.
Yep. And I also have
And
notes
so,
down here about each
and
one.
this CS in school is something,
Mm.
the third one,
Yep.
which inspired me a lot.
Some of these have an LMS, but because I was used to Khan Academy's LMS is very well developed if you want to keep track of progress.
Yes, true.
But
And very
things like
old one as well.
Yep, and things like Microbit, I'm trying to see how they handle LMS, but they have great resources. You can view other students' code while you're sitting at your teacher's
That's the
desk.
most important thing, especially when you give the students work and they're working independently. You want to
Yeah,
track them. Are they done the work? What they're up to? If they're struggling with anything.
yes. And if you have a
Excellent.
timed assessment as well, it's great. But anyways, that is a lot of my research there summarized.
Excellent. So Shan, that's so nice. And the viewers who are watching, as I say, you can also get your hand dirty, especially if you join the club. Joining club is very simple. Your parents can just fill up one form, and it's only $20 a year as a parent to join Young Innovators parent membership. And then when the students join, they pay $100 only for a full year learning
Hmm.
with all the free courses we offer. They can join. So if you really were interested, every Saturday we have robotics class. You can join, and the link is given below for both joining as a parent to the club, also to enroll your child into one of these workshop what we session we run on every Saturday. Once again, thank you very much, Shan. It
Thank
was
you.
lovely catching up, and within a
Likewise.
half an hour we been through a great journey. Now I got something to learn from tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.